Nearly 67 million people tuned into the debate, and the surprise star was the man in the red sweater.
What steps will your energy policy take to meet our energy needs?
The internet has determined a clear winner, Mr. Ken Bone.
A man in a red sweater stole the spotlight.
Ken Bone, you're so charming.
The legend of Ken Bone.
Boneheads.
We all love Ken Bone.
I'm looking for him on Twitter because I want to follow him.
T-shirts are now being sold with the caption, "Welcome to the Bone Zone."
Check the mic and make sure it sound right. Boy.
What is up, everyone? Today I am joined by the legendary Ken Bone. How are you doing, buddy?
Couldn't be better. Happy to be here. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad that you're here with us. So why don't you go ahead and just catch anyone up to speed that might not know about what kind of blew up your viral fame?
Oh yeah, I never get tired of telling this story. So I was at the presidential debate in 2016 between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. I was wearing a bright red sweater and the internet thought it was stupid, and I was trending for several days.
What do you think made that moment such a big deal to people? Do you think it's because it was such that election, people were very, it was a very intense time in the country. People were very split apart. And do you think that it was just what do you think made people couldn't have been more separate on everything, but somehow everyone came around to support just some random guy? What do you think about made that happen?
Well, how long can you really have every waking moment of every day be focused on hating 50% of your fellow countrymen? People needed something else to focus on when we had the two statistically most unlikable candidates in the history of this country. Ever since they started tracking that, they're like, oh, how much do people like this candidate? Not very much. Oh, they can like this one a bunch. The two lowest ratings of all time, Hillary Clinton, and then slightly lower Donald Trump. And for some reason, we ran them against each other, and people hated it. And all the media and the politicians want you to do is also, instead of just hating the other politician, hate their whole team too. And people they get sick of it after a while and needed something else to pay attention to. And the dude in the goofy outfit who seemed to want to have fun on television, that was something else to focus on for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So what was it like? I'm sure you're invested in politics because you were there and you care, obviously. But what was it like? You weren't asking for this overnight kind of celebrity. So what was it like dealing with that?
It was weird. I got home and I didn't expect there to be anything going on, but then my wife has got MSNBC up on the television and they're not talking about Donald Trump. They're talking about me, and it's my big giant head on the television. And I didn't get it. And then the next morning I had interviews from 4 a.m. until about 2 a.m., between 20 and 22 hours straight. I was doing media in 15-minute segments. And it continued like that for about three days, doing 20-hour days continuously until I couldn't really see straight. Oh,
wow. So is this giving you some flashbacks, some PTSD kind of symptoms? Do you not want anything to do with interviews anymore? Or is that
Well, I don't want to have to travel all over the country anymore and schedule my time down into 5-minute increments to do all this stuff. It's not really that fun. People are like, man, you got to travel to so many cool places. I'm like, yeah, all these hotels and airports were dope. I didn't know if I was in Charlotte or in New York. Yeah, I could have been in Dubai for all I knew, because you don't really get to go anywhere or do anything. You just get in the car they send for you at the airport. It takes you to the TV studio, and then that takes you to a radio studio, and then that takes you back to the hotel, and then it comes back for you in a few hours, and you go do it again. And then you go back to the airport, and you go do it in a different city. I did get to do some cool stuff. I don't want to make it seem like I'm bitching and crying about it. It was, I got to do some really interesting things as well. I got to raise a bunch of money for some charities that I like. I got to make some money for me also. I paid, I got to pay off my car, which was pretty fun. But it was a lot of work and just a weird, a blur of a time.
So okay. So you mentioned you got to do some cool stuff. You mentioned the charity. What do you think was maybe the coolest experience that you got out of it?
I got to go walk the red carpet at the Hollywood premiere of Doctor Strange.
Oh,
so not many schlubby Midwestern guys get to take their wife to a Hollywood red carpet.
Yeah,
and,
no.
rub elbows with celebrities and go to a premiere, at the El Capitan Theater. It was pretty wild.
Okay, that's cool. You seem to have mentioned some of the less pleasant sides of it. Like, and I know you did an interview, I believe, with the New Yorker where you said that like you had really bad anxiety during that time and like you were shaking and things. What about the whole situation caused you to have that kind of like visceral reaction to it?
Well, first is because I was never getting any rest. Like, I still have my job and my family that I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was afraid they were starting to get neglected. So the pressure was on at work, the pressure was on at home. And then I'm also trying to schedule around doing all these media appearances, signing contracts for, stuff I'm hoping to get to endorse to make a couple of bucks, and then working all of that around. Then the phone rings and, oh yeah, it's more death threats. It's more people saying they're going to leave bombs at my house. And, oh yeah, the SWAT team is at my house again, checking for bombs, because somebody called in a death threat to the local police station saying they were going to come and shoot me. So that gets old pretty quick.
Wait, so this is my first time hearing of that. So people called in bomb threats to your house and like that was a reoccurring thing?
Many times. I know every policeman in my hometown of Shiloh, Illinois by their first name, because they have all been to my house to check for gunmen or explosives. We had the detectives here in Shiloh, multiple of them had to have cases open trying to track down people who were making threatening phone calls or sending letters or whatever. And that gets old in a hurry, because it's not just me, it's my family. Like,
oh, for sure.
My son at the time was 13.
Mm-hmm.
And he got to get woken up out of bed one night by the cops, who rapidly escorted him out into the front yard, while they've got their AR-15s trained around them trying to clear the rest of the house, because there's supposedly a gunman said he was in my basement.
Oh, wow.
So that was really fun. Put him off of police interaction for a long time.
Mm. Dang, so that's really intense. I hadn't heard of any of that. What do you think because you said that this was multiple people, were these practical jokesters that have like really terrible sense of humor, or were people really pissed off at you?
Well, I never saw anybody with a real gun, and they never found a real bomb. And the only person that they actually found out who it was a 14-year-old who did it for the lulz.
Okay.
So, I didn't want him prosecuted, but I did get to talk to his dad, and he made it clear that kind of thing was never going to happen again, because that kid might not be on the internet again until he's 18.
Yeah. That's crazy. I know that that's a problem for a lot of influencers and things, is like getting swatted and stuff, but I never would have assumed that would happen to you. But I guess because of the political nature of how you got popular on the internet, like that's bound to, I guess, have some negative reactions from people.
Well, it doesn't really even have to be political. Like,
yeah.
How political is Post Malone? About 0%. But he's been doxxed multiple times and had people roll up to his house, either crazed fans who think that they're going to be best friends with somebody that they heard about on the internet, which is an insane thing that happens to celebrities, or just somebody who thinks it would be neat to get in the news by threatening them. Rooster Teeth Media is one of my favorite online content creators. And one of their big creators, Gavin Free, there was a guy showed up at his house and was going to, had a gun. And Gavin and his girlfriend, Meg Turney, a famous cosplayer, had to hide in the closet because this guy's plan was to kill Gavin so that he could be Meg's new boyfriend. And then the cops showed up, the guy ran outside, and the cops killed him. So that's a life-changing event for those two.
Really traumatic.
Just because people know their name on the internet. It's insanity.
Yeah. Well, dang, man, I'm sorry I had to go through that. That's crazy.
Well, I mean, nobody actually came to my house with a gun, at least not as far as we know. And just in case anybody out there is wondering, there are more guns than there are people in Ken Bone's house. So maybe they'll threaten another.
So, hey, be warned.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I wanted to talk about, since you kind of got your initial kind of internet fame from being at this debate, have people looked towards you to have opinions on political issues? Is that something that you feel like do you feel obligated when there's like a big event, like the protests or things like that, to have stances on that? Or is that something that you stay away from?
I don't really feel obligated to have a stance, but I do feel obligated to do a lot of research and be able to answer questions about it. Because like it or not, there is some kind of correlation between like how much people know who you are and how much a random person might trust your opinion.
Yeah.
Like why do we trust the opinion of Bill Nye the Science Guy on climate change? Because he's on TV and he's a science guy. Well, he's a mechanical engineer. He has a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. That's his science credentials. And that's great and everything. And I think on climate change, he happens to be mostly right, but he's not the one doing the research. He's just the face.
He just presents it in like a fun way.
He's the one that people see. So people think that because they can see him, that he must be the smart guy, the one that knows. And to a much smaller extent, because he's like 50,000 times more famous than me, then there's me. They're like, oh, he's the politics guy. He must know about politics. Well, I don't, but now I have to do the research so that I can kind of figure it out. Is that you have three options. You can do what a lot of like quick celebrities do and just be a piece of human garbage and spout your opinion as if it's fact. I didn't want to do that. Or
I think everyone's thankful about that.
Yeah. Or you can do the research, and when people ask you questions, you can try to give them a thoughtful answer or say, sorry, I don't know. Or you can do the third thing and just don't answer the phone anymore. Like the biggest meme around my same time, other than Harambe couldn't do interviews because he's dead, but was Chewbacca Mom. You don't see Chewbacca Mom doing too many podcasts these days because I don't think she wants to. She just don't answer the phone.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why I still do this stuff and she doesn't, is because I'm okay with doing it and she's not. So yeah, that's your third option. So I kind of picked option number 2, where I'm like, all right, I'll do a little bit of the homework. If people ask me, like, what do you think about Medicare for all? I say things like, well, America right now has the #1 spending in healthcare expenditures of the entire world per capita. And we only get the 31st best result as measured by the World Health Organization. So we're spending #1 and our results are number 31.
Yeah.
That's not cool. Well, how does that compare against other countries that do socialized medicine? And it turns out that for less money, they're getting better results. So some version of that seems like it would make sense. And then, I've got more research beyond that if people want to get deeper into the topic. But, I just try to have kind of a broad level of understanding of a lot of the bigger issues.
Okay, cool. I think that's a very respectable take on that. Let's go something a little more fun. And I don't know if this is true, so I'm kind of asking for a correction potentially. I saw something where it was like you got offered $100,000 to appear on a porn website called Cam Soda. Is that
they floated that out in a press release, hoping that exactly this would happen. Nobody ever contacted me directly.
Yeah.
Unless I guess I could have missed an email or something. But Cam Soda never contacted me directly. They just floated that out there, hoping that either I would hear about it and respond, or just folks on the news or in internet articles would give them free publicity by mentioning it.
Oh, okay.
But the offer, as I understand it, was I didn't have to do any actual porn. I could just do a 1-hour live stream of whatever I wanted.
Yeah, that's what it said in like the letter. It was just like they called it the Bone Zone.
I wish I had figured it out. I'd have done an hour of talking about whatever.
So they missed out.
Expertise and
maybe the offer still stands. We can try to get you back in touch.
I'll do it. I'll talk about 80s cartoons for an hour. I'll do a compare and contrast of the morality of G.I. Joe versus the Thundercats for as long as you want for $100,000.
Yeah, I'll talk about a lot of things for $100,000. So I saw too recently that maybe it wasn't too recently, maybe a year or two ago, that you performed stand-up in Chicago. Was comedy something that you were already interested in and as a hobby, or is that something that maybe you got into after all this because you had a platform?
Well, I always wanted to do stand-up when I was a kid, and I had done a couple of small local open mic nights over the years and had, moderate success for an amateur night kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it never went anywhere. And I didn't really put the work into it. I didn't take the risk to, try to become a comic. If you want to become a comic, you got to grind. You're doing like 2 shows a night every night and 4 on Saturdays at 2 different clubs, just trying to get your name out there. I never did that. I never took it that seriously. It was just something I enjoyed. Well, because of the platform, I got the opportunity to go perform at a comedy show up in Chicago. So I put together what I felt was a pretty decent 10-minute set for an amateur. And
Yeah.
I never really tried to pursue it much after that, but it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, it looked fun. It seemed like you did well. When I didn't watch the whole thing, I was just doing research, but I was skimming through it, and you were getting good laughs and stuff. So I was like, okay.
Well, we had a lot of good comics going that night. Good, hotshot locals from Chicago. They let me go second to last, near the headliner position. So the crowd's all warmed up. Everybody's had multiple drinks, and plus I got the name recognition, or at least I did at the time. I was a much bigger name then than I am now. So all those factors together, I wouldn't have had to be very good at all. I would have had to be horrible for them to not like it. So I did what I set out to do, which was put together a halfway decent set with kind of a cohesive voice running through it. And it did pretty well. And it was just something I did for fun.
Okay, cool. Well, it looked fun. You mentioned there too, that you were a much bigger name back then. Has it been jarring in any way to kind of go from being like a normal Midwesterner to like an overnight sensation to now you're kind of like somewhat a normal Midwesterner again? Like, has that been interesting? Like mentally, has that been weird at all?
Very much so. There's a reason, like, while you'll see, like, it could be some rando who is like, I was on 3 episodes of Charles in Charge, and now I'm going to be at Comic-Con signing autographs, and nobody goes to their table because they don't care.
Yeah.
But you get that attention, you get that notoriety. Nothing in the world is more addictive than that. I went to a hockey game one time here in St. Louis for the Blues, which is my favorite hockey team. You know how in between periods or like in between innings at baseball games or at halftime at the football game, they'll put stuff up on the Jumbotron and
like Kiss Cam or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. They'll show members of the crowd or whatever. Well, they invited me out that night. They're like, hey, we'll put you up on the Jumbotron when we're doing celebrity lookalikes in the crowd, only it'll really be you. It'll be funny. And I was like, yeah, cool. That'll be fun. So I went and I did that. 19,000 people in the building went out of their mind. And I spent the whole rest of the game outside the arena. People skipped the rest of the game to come and get my autograph.
Wow, that's crazy.
So when you got an arena full of people cheering for you and chanting your name, it's the most addictive feeling in the entire world. So that's why people keep coming back to it and trying to keep it going. I never really tried to fuel it that much because it would just be, I don't know, kind of vain of me to do it. It's not like I could make a living doing this. So I decided to just focus on my career and on my family and continue doing interviews like yours for fun.
Okay.
But some nights I lay down and I'm like, you have this weird existential feeling, kind of like I imagine if you're like Al Bundy and you got 4 touchdowns in a single game for Polk High during the state championship game.
Yeah.
And then the rest of your life is like, man, I peaked. I've already peaked. I've already done the coolest thing I'm ever going to do.
Yeah.
So the coolest thing I'm ever going to do, I did when I was 34.
Yeah.
So now I kind of got that feeling going with me for the rest of my life, I guess.
Okay. I mean, I don't believe so. I think Ken Bone's going to go just accomplish more great things because, it was an unintentional thing too that happened. So I think that, donating to charity, for example, because I think someone bought the sweater for $10,000, right? Like to me, that's a cooler thing that you did than just the initial fame, because that was like an intentional thing and it was larger than yourself, right? So I think that there's like plenty of opportunity to to not peak. You can keep going.
Yeah, that was through my contract with Izod. They bought the sweater back. They gave me $10,000 for it, which all went straight to the St. Patrick's Center for the Homeless here in Granite City, or here in St. Louis. So that benefited a lot of homeless folks. And it was the year after the Rams moved away from St. Louis. So they just happened to have like a $20,000 or $30,000 budget shortfall because now the Rams aren't here. They're not doing charity stuff for them anymore.
Yeah.
I was able to help them make up through that and some of the other donations that, people would put in my name. We almost made up the budget shortfall for a whole football team.
That's amazing, dude. That's incredible.
For, at least for 1 year. So that was a great feeling, being able to help a whole lot of folks.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's some of the most memorable stuff when I look back at it.
Yeah. And to me, that's like the most meaningful, like when you're sitting in bed kind of thing, and like an existential kind of way. Like, I think that that's the kind of stuff you could hang your hat on and like feel good about it. Not like you peaked, but more like, you were able to accomplish something that it takes 53 professional football players and a whole organization to do, like, I think that's incredible.
That's a good way to look at it. And it's all about trying to maintain a positive attitude about it.
Yeah.
Because everybody in their life has those nights where they lay down, they're like, man, I should have told off that jerk in high school or whatever. And it eats at you. So, now I have something, only it's like that, but it's a very unique and unusual thing that it's even hard to talk to people about.
Does it eat at you in a way that you wish you would have like capitalized on your kind of like 15 minutes of fame more, or like?
Sometimes I feel like it is, but then I'll see somebody out there like Omarosa, who was on Trump's reality show, and she's still out there pimping herself out, just trying to get 5 more minutes of that sweet, sweet attention. And I'm like, okay, maybe I don't want to do that. That's gross.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I saw too, speaking of just kind of like, maybe things that you did during that time, you had a podcast for a while, right? It was called the Bone Zone, right?
For about a year.
Yeah.
I really only did it because my best friend from high school, he moved up to Minnesota, and we don't get to hang out anymore. So I figured like, hey, this guy, he's interested in the same stuff I am. We've been best buddies for 25 years. So this would be something that we could get together and have like a Zoom call every week and talk about the news. And just an excuse to hang out with my pal for 2 hours a week. And then he got his master's degree and had to focus on his career search. Couldn't be devoting a couple hours a week to it anymore. And so it was just me by myself. I'm like, well, I could try to find a new co-host, or I could try to do it by myself. And doing just a stream of consciousness podcast for 90 minutes by yourself is torturous. Nobody wants to listen to that. Everybody who thinks they're Rush Limbaugh or whatever, you're not. You can't actually just spew your opinion out for that long every week, and people are not going to listen to it.
Oh, trust me, I know.
But you need to have somebody to bounce your ideas off of. You need to either have guests or a co-host or a producer who likes to chime in or something. I didn't have any of that stuff. And we had no budget. Like, I literally did not make a dime from the podcast, and I didn't want to lose money doing it. So I didn't buy equipment. I didn't hire producers. I didn't do any of that stuff. So it was no reward, but also it was no risk, so.
I mean, you're speaking my language pretty much right now, dude.
Yeah. Like, I could have gone out, and there were podcast studios that were like, you can use our facilities, and we'll have this high production value, and we'll even help you book people. And it's like, $1,500 a month. I'm like, I'm not going to make back $1,500 a month. Are you out of your damn mind? And I was like, well, how about you go out and find me some sponsors, and then we'll do it. And they're like, well, we don't go out and find sponsors for you. I'm like, hey, I'm not mad at you. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not taking that kind of financial risk.
Yeah. All right, well, that's cool. So, okay. Yeah. Okay. This is just a fun question. I asked Green Shirt Guy this too, so I'm interested to see what you say. You can,
great dude.
Yeah. I love Alex. Great guy. You can take this as serious or as fun as you want. Okay. If you could pass any law or like make anything just federal law overnight, there's no one can veto, no one can amend it. You can just put it out there and it exists. What would you do?
Campaign fundraising can only work like this. There is a limit of $20 donation per person, and corporations cannot give money, and no other organization can run political ads for or against any issue or organization or candidate. That's it. You want to be a politician? You got to get $20 from Ben. You got to get $20 from Ken and Heather. You got to get $20 from my kid Logan, and you got to try to build a campaign that way. The 2016 presidential campaign, they fundraised $2.5 billion between the two of them and spent it all. $2.5 billion. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, we could end homelessness in the United States for $20 billion.
Yep.
So in one campaign, we were 10% of the way to ending homelessness. And what did we do with that money? We set it on fucking fire for the two worst candidates in history.
Yep.
And we also ruined civil discourse for the entire country, possibly for decades.
You were prepared for that answer, dude. That was a perfect answer. I couldn't agree more. And the whole, this is interesting because I'm looking at apartments and things right now, and they have this law right now where no one can be evicted, right, because of COVID, and they're thinking about getting rid of that in the near future. And I just know, like, with the currently homelessness, which you seem to be a big proponent of fighting that, homelessness is like at like in one of its worst situations it's ever been. Like, it's terrible right now, and we have hundreds of thousands of people that they can't afford their rent, but they aren't being evicted right now because of the COVID laws. And as soon as those laws get like taken away, we're gonna have like an influx of homeless people even worse than it is now. And like, I think it's going to be a very like trying time in the near future when that happens.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got I forget the exact percentage, but it's more than half of U.S. households are 2 paychecks away from homelessness.
Yep.
You get fired today, 2 weeks from 2 paychecks from now, or 1 month from now, you're out on the street unless you can live with your mom or your brother or something.
Yep.
And that's there are millions of people living in that situation who are able to move back with their mother or crash on their buddy's couch or whatever. Well, if you got a wife and 4 kids, your buddy ain't going to let you crash on his couch for very long. He doesn't want to throw your 4 kids out on the street, but he's also living in a loft in Manhattan that's 400 square feet. What can he do for you? So if you add the numbers of people who are in those situations to the people who are actually homeless and are sleeping on the street, we have millions upon millions of people who are housing insecure or experiencing homelessness. And there's going to be a whole bunch more once we start allowing landlords to kick people out again.
Yep.
So there's 2 different kinds of landlords, by the way. One, there's like a guy that moved out of his house in North Carolina and bought one in New Mexico and couldn't sell his house in North Carolina. So he started renting it out, and he liked the people that rented from him. So he just let them continue renting from him forever. They didn't want to buy the joint. They just wanted to rent it. And then when they moved out, their cousin moved in and they were cool too. That's a good landlord. He pays for upkeep on the house. He helps you take care of issues. He gives you an affordable place to live, even if you don't have good enough credit or enough down payment to buy. That's a good landlord. Then there's bad landlords who own 15 apartment buildings and run them like slums, or people that buy homes as if they're a source of retirement income and then gouge the shit out of the people that live there and don't take proper care of them. That drives the price of the housing market up extremely high. That's
which is happening right now. Yeah.
And investment firms are snapping up houses at an incredible rate. Pretty soon, investment firms are going to own more houses than citizens will own houses. And the prices are unbelievable. And some people who are short-sighted are super happy. Like my neighbors 3 houses down are moving out. They're so happy because they're getting $100,000 over asking price. Wow, good for you. Are you moving to the fucking moon? Oh, no, you want to buy another house? Well, guess what? You're going to pay $100,000 over asking price or more. You're not actually coming out ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think we're in for a really bad storm in the next couple of years with that. So I think that your law, I wish we could pass it right now because that'd be great.
Yeah, one of my other laws would be that only human beings can own houses. Corporations can't own houses, and you can't own more than, 3. If you got a couple nickels to rub together and you want to have a vacation house in the foothills and one on the beach and then your regular one, cool, good for you. You're living the American dream. But you want to have 25 so that you can milk the lower middle class for a little bit more passive income so you can retire at 40 and they have to work till they die. Go to hell.
Hey, I couldn't have said it better myself. So so here's just another question, right? You obviously have an interest in politics. Have you ever considered, and I'm not talking about like presidency, but have you ever considered running for any sort of local town office or anything like that? Or
we did some polling last election cycle about me running for Congress, Illinois District 12 here, so to the United States House of Representatives. I was polling against the incumbent at about 50%, so it was a pretty good chance.
That's really good, dude.
That was before doing any campaigning or any campaign announcement or anything. It was almost a certainty that if I could have raised enough money to do real advertisement, I would have won at least the primary. And then based on name recognition and fundraising ability alone, there's an excellent chance that I would have won. I still might be able to do it in a future cycle if I wanted to.
So is that something that you're considering?
I considered it many times, but we ultimately decided not to because it's not just me, it's my family that I then have to drag out into the limelight. When I was out there the first time, everything stupid that I've ever done or said in the history of the internet got drug out and was on the front page of newspapers. If I'm running for office, then it's not just me and everything dumb I might have ever said. It's my parents, who I love very dearly, but who have done some dumb things in their lives, and my wife and her parents and my son and everybody we know. And they didn't volunteer for that, and I don't want to do it to them.
Okay. Fair enough. I think that, I mean, that's a respectful answer for sure.
That's why only super rich people run for office, because one, you basically have to take 6 months off of work to campaign, and who can afford to do that unless they're already independently wealthy? Why would you spend $500,000 to get $170,000 a year job unless you plan to steal it back with interest? And then two, unless people already know who you are and know the dirt on you, or you have the political clout or the money to hide all that dirt, why would you want to do that to yourself?
Yeah. Because if you ran against the incumbent too, like the hit pieces and stuff would be crazy. Like they'd be crazy. They have a lot of money behind them.
I don't dislike the incumbent either. His name's Mike Bost. He's a Republican. He's an okay dude. I've talked to him once or twice just for a few minutes, and he was very polite to me. And I don't think he's doing a terrible job or anything. But like most people, when I look at my congressional representative, I think I could do better than that. Kind of like when you watch football and like
they drop the pass. Like I could get that.
Cam throws an interception. You're like, what the hell, man? What were you throwing?
Hey, don't be coming for my boy.
I don't know if he's your boy anymore. He's wearing the wrong color.
Hey, it's okay. He's with us in our hearts,
I believe you.
Bounce back here. Bounce back here.
My whole football team has to be with me in my heart because they left.
Oh,
I always
say you a big Rams fan?
Not really that big, but they did win the Super Bowl when I was a senior in high school, so that was big.
That's cool.
But the team when I was a little kid was the old St. Louis Cardinals that are now in Arizona. They moved out of town when I was in kindergarten, and then the Rams came when I was in like 8th or 9th grade or something. And then they won a Super Bowl within about 5 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then they left again a few years ago. So, a deadbeat dad only leaves you once. The NFL has left me twice. So I think I might be done.
Yeah, you got some trust issues with your football teams.
Yeah, I think bring on Major League Soccer. We got a St. Louis Football Club coming next year.
Hey, well, look, we're adopting Panther fans. You can get in now, and you won't be considered a bandwagon fan because we're terrible. So get in while the getting's good.
There you go. I might have to jump on that.
Let's do it. All right, awesome, man. Well, before I let you go, do you have any future plans or anything that you want people to know about?
I have very little going on. If you just absolutely want to see more of me for some reason, then you can check out the Abe Lincoln's Top Hat podcast with Ben Kissel. I was on that. Just released the episode the other day. He's a fantastic podcaster, much like yourself. It was a very fun interview. I've been on with him a few times. And you can also book me on Cameo if you want me to tell your brother-in-law happy birthday or something.
All right, awesome. That sounds great, man. I appreciate you coming on. It's been a pleasure talking to you, man.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Have a good one.
You too, man.